This week on Africa Weekly, we focus on the trial of the Malian jihadi leader accused of masterminding the destruction of Timbuktu's ancient mausoleums. We go to Cape Town, where former gang leaders are helping to mediate conflicts. And finally, we take you to an up-and-coming vineyard in the heart of Egypt's Nile Valley that's hoping to win over international wine connoisseurs. But first, a summary of the stories that made the headlines this week. A young man was shot dead in the eastern town of Beni in the Democratic Republic of Congo on Wednesday when security forces opened fire at a crowd protesting the government's alleged failure to protect civilians after last weekend's gruesome massacre. 51 civilians were hacked to death in the latest in a string of attacks blamed on the rebel Allied Democratic Forces, an armed group of Ugandan origin. The ADF has been present in the DRC for more than 2 decades and is accused of a litany of human rights abuses. The UN Security Council has authorized the deployment of 4,000 troops to South Sudan to strengthen the 12,000-person peacekeeping mission, threatening to impose an arms embargo on the country if the government blocks the deployment. President Salva Kiir said he was not opposed to the deployment, but that more time and further negotiations were needed. The UN is facing renewed criticism over repeated failures to protect civilians and has launched a probe into a hotel attack in which soldiers raped women and assaulted aid workers, while UN peacekeepers allegedly failed to act. A new video released by Boko Haram claims to show some of the Nigerian schoolgirls kidnapped from Chibok more than 2 years ago, as the jihadist group called for its detained fighters to be freed. The father of one of the 218 girls still missing identified his daughter in the video, and a spokesman for the Bring Back Our Girls movement said he was certain of the identities of 10 other girls seen in the footage. A passerby was killed in Bamako when people protesting over the arrest of a popular radio presenter clashed with security forces who were firing tear gas. Supporters had gathered outside court where Mohamed Youssef Batili, who was often critical of the authorities, was due to appear in connection with a police investigation into whether he broke public morality rules. Hundreds took to the streets of Zambia's capital, Lusaka, to celebrate President Edgar Lungu's re-election after a closely fought vote. Lunga polled over 50.35%, 2.5% ahead of his main rival, Hakainde Hichilema, but the opposition claimed the vote was rigged. Lungu has been in office for just 19 months after he took power in a snap election following the death of President Michael Sata. South Africa's main opposition parties announced that they will not form coalition governments in key cities after the country's recent municipal election, but vowed to unite to block the African National Congress from taking majority control. The ruling party saw its worst poll results since the end of white minority rule in 1994, losing its majority in the largest metropolitan areas. A Malian alleged jihadist is going on trial for an attack on the World Heritage Site of Timbuktu in an unprecedented case before the International Criminal Court.
This was the scene in Timbuktu as jihadists wrecked historic shrines in Mali 4 years ago. Insurgents linked to Al-Qaeda destroyed 14 mausoleums that date back to Timbuktu's golden age in the 15th and 16th centuries. Now the man accused of directing those attacks will stand trial at the International Criminal Courts.
I understand the charges.
Ahmed Al-Faki Al-Mahdi is set to plead guilty to the war crime of destroying the UNESCO World Heritage Site. He'll be the first alleged jihadist to stand trial before the ICC and the first to be charged with crimes arising from the Mali conflict.
This is the first time that the court could defend the cultural heritage of a community, recognise its true significance and contribute to the fight against the scourge that touches it. That can often be the prelude to worse abuses against the population.
Since the attacks, UNESCO and the Malian government have begun to rebuild the tombs at Timbuktu, looking through ruins and photos to make them as accurate as possible.
Fortunately, we found after the destruction that the remains of the walls are still there. We analysed the site, which was our first source of information. We also collected information from the community, from different cultural organisations, to find old photographs and documents collected from historians who came here to Timbuktu.
Despite the rebuilding efforts, prosecutors at the ICC say more is at stake than walls and stones, claiming this was an attack on identity, history and beliefs. If the trial finds al-Mahdi guilty of war crimes, it could set an important precedent, although it won't affect jihadists in Syria or Iraq because neither country has signed up to the ICC.
Gangs are part of daily life in Hanover Park. In this Cape Town community of 45,000 people, 80 people die from gang violence every year.
We have recorded 2 fatal shootings just for today. And I mean, it's only 3 o'clock now.
A local NGO called Ceasefire tackles the violence through direct interaction with these gangs. At its core, the interrupters, former gangsters such as Nilon Peterson, act as mediators on the ground. Modelled on the Cure Violence Project from Chicago, the community initiative has been running here since 2010.
The leader of the gang, he will talk to me, and we will look at ways that we can avoid the violence.
These close links with gangs has drawn criticism from anti-crime community groups who claim this contact legitimizes criminals. Funded by the city of Cape Town, Ceasefire uses specialized equipment and a real-time app to locate gunshots and record data.
Why not recover high-risk individuals, make them job ready, give them a job and have them sow into the community in a positive way? Why not?
It all comes down to results. Data collected by Ceasefire so far suggests a reduced murder rate of up to 26% on a yearly basis in the area since the program began. With unemployment up almost 27% and drug use and gang violence on the rise in the Cape Flats, those behind the program say they're determined to continue their controversial project, even if it comes under fire.
This vineyard is in the heart of Egypt's Nile Valley, where the majority of the population is Muslim. Since the early 2000s, 2 vineyards have been trying to revive a trade that had nearly died out.
We're turning a new leaf in wine production. All these are trials until we really become a stable wine-producing country. We need to plant vines in different places with different types of grapes, so that we can decide which type of vine to plant according to the place.
Pharaohs used to make wine some 3,000 years ago. The industry was also developed under British rule in the 19th century. Today, a dozen locally produced reds, whites and rosés have hit the market. Some have even won international awards.
We had to adapt to the severe extreme weather conditions. We developed special irrigation systems. We have systems that measure the humidity of the soil and the plants day by day.
The revival of Egyptian wine is good news for trendy restaurants in Cairo. In this conservative society, drinking is often frowned on, and prohibitive customs duties mean foreign wine is rarely imported.
We had some people here telling us there's the headache wine and there's the wine that is okay, but there is no good wine, they told us. And now I think you actually have good wine. You still have the headache wine, but you also have really good wine that can compare with most international wines.
This budding industry is still a long way from rivaling international heavyweights, but the owners of the new Egyptian vineyards hope to make a name for themselves on Asian markets.
The president of the South African Rugby Union, Oregan Hoskins, has stepped down, saying that after more than 10 years in the job, it's time for a change. Rugby in South Africa is under scrutiny as it comes under pressure to introduce more black players in the white-dominated Springbok team. Vice President Mark Alexander will take over as interim head until new elections are held. Next week, we'll take you to the Lesotho races, where owners are hoping to cash in off the back of their purebred horses and native Basotho ponies. That's all from us at Africa Weekly. Until next week.